In our next video, we are going to look at how to multiply and divide by multiples of 10. We know that 2 times 10 equals 20, 30 times 100 equals 3,000, and that 4 times 40 equals 160. As a quick trick, you've probably been taught to focus on the numbers and count the zeros to get your answer. So you could say 2 times 1 equals 2, and there is 1 0, so that's how we get our 20. Or 3 times 1 equals 3, and we have 3 zeros, so that's how we get 3,000. Or even that 4 times 4 equals 16, and then 1 0 makes it 160. Perhaps you've been told something similar when you are dividing. So 40 divided by 10 is 4, 7,000 divided by 100 is 70, 800 divided by 20 is 40. Maybe you've been told to focus on the numbers and cancel the zeros. So you would say 4 divided by 1 is 4, then cancel 1 0 from each side to get an answer of 4. Or that 7 divided by 1 is 7, and then cancel out 2 zeros from each side to be left with 70. You could even say 8 divided by 2 equals 4, and cancel out 1 0 from each side, leaving you with 40 as an answer. While these are some great mental tricks to help you get to the answer quickly, it doesn't quite explain what is going on here. See, it wouldn't work in examples like 8 divided by 100. There are no zeros to cancel, so how do we get 0,08 as an answer? Or how does 32 divided by 10 equal 3,2 if there's nothing to cancel? How come 6,89 times 100 becomes 689? Why don't we add in the zeros? Let's take a look at what is really going on here. 4 times 10 equals 40, but look closely at what has happened. The 4 was originally in the units column, and now it has shifted to the tens column. So when we multiply by 10, or a multiple of 10, we are shifting the number into a bigger place value. Consider 2,3 times 100. Multiply means that my number is going to get bigger, and we can use the number of zeros in our second number to find out how much bigger. 100 has 2 zeros, so this means that our number is going to get bigger by 2 place values. Originally, the 2 in 2,3 was in the units column. 2 place values bigger than units is the hundreds column. So, if we shift the 2 into the hundreds, the 3 must now be in the tens. Every number we write must always have something in the units column, so we're going to place a 0 as a placeholder. Another way we can look at it is like this. We can look at the comma and move it around to help us read the numbers. If we're making a number bigger, the comma needs to move to the right. The number of zeros tells us how many times to jump the comma in a direction. So using 2,3 again, if we circle the comma and jump it once to the right, it ends up just after the 3. If we jump it twice, there is a gap between the comma and the last digit, so we fill that gap with a 0. Do you see how we end up with the same answer? You can use either method to help you when you answer questions like this. Let's practice. The number 16 goes up to the tens column, and when we are multiplying it by 100, there are 2 zeros in the 100, which tells me that I need to shift it so that it is 2 columns bigger. 2 columns bigger than tens is thousands, which is where I write the number 1. The 6 goes into the hundreds, and we fill in the zeros into the tens and units. Let's try the jumping method. There is always a comma hidden next to the units, so just because you don't write it, it doesn't mean that it's not there. So the comma next to the units needs to jump 3 spaces, because there are 3 zeros, to the right, because we are multiplying and making our number bigger. So we jump the comma once, fill the gap with a 0, jump it a second time, and fill in the next gap with a 0. Do the same for the final jump, and now we can see why our answer is 28,000. Let's try one more. 12,72 goes up to the tens column. Multiplying by 10 means that we shifted one place value bigger because there is only 1 0 in the number 10. One place value larger than 10 is hundreds. The decimals in our given number appear in the tenths and the hundredths columns, so I'm going to need to plan for this. When we write our answer, the 1 now appears in the hundreds column, the 2 is now in the tens, 7 has moved to the units, and the other 2 has shifted to the tenths. There is nothing in the hundredths now, which we can just leave blank, although if you placed a 0 there, your answer wouldn't be wrong. If I had tried to use the jumping method, I can see that jumping the comma one space, because there's 1 0, to the right, because we're multiplying, would cause the comma to end up between the 7 and the 2. This is the same as what we got in our answer, so either method works. Let's take a look at what is happening when we divide. 70 divided by 10 equals 7. But when we look closely at what has happened, we can see that the 7 was originally in the tens column, and now it has shifted into the units column. So when we divide by 10, or a multiple of 10, we are shifting the number into a smaller place value. Since the 10 has 1 0, we move it to one place value smaller than where it started. Divide means that my number is going to get smaller, and we can use the number of zeros in our second number to find out how much smaller. Consider 4,800 divided by 100. 100 has 2 zeros, so this means that our number is going to get smaller by 2 place values. Originally, the 4 in 4,800 was in the thousands column. 2 place values smaller than thousands is the tens column. So if we shift the 4 into the tens, the 8 must now be in the units. 270 divided by 1,000 can be worked out the same way. The 2 is in the hundreds column, and I need to move the digit 3 place values smaller because there are 3 zeros in 1,000. But I only have 3 place values in the number. So now what? Remember, there is always a comma sitting next to the units column, which we know is followed by the tenths. So we can place the 2 in the tenths, and the 7 just needs to go next to it in the hundredths. We can't just have an answer of comma 27, so we place a 0 in the units, making our answer 0, comma 27. Another way we can look at it is by moving the comma around. If we are making a number smaller, the comma needs to move to the left. The number of zeros tells us how many times to jump the comma in a direction. So, using 270 again, if we circle the comma and jump it 3 times to the left, it ends up just before the 2. Again, we can't just have an answer of comma 27, so we place a 0 in the units, making our answer 0, comma 27. Let's try one more with the jumping method. I am dividing by 100, which has 2 zeros, and I'm dividing, so I'm going to move the commas 2 spaces to the left. The first jump places the comma between the 4 and the 0, and the second jump lands us between the 3 and the 4. This gives us an answer of 3,409. If we had to work out the answer by shifting columns, we can see that 340,9 goes up to the hundreds column. Dividing by 100 means that we shifted 2 place values smaller because there are 2 zeros in the number 100. 2 place values smaller than hundreds is units. So the 3 goes into the units column, the 4 into the tenths, the 0 into the hundredths, and the 9 ends up in the thousandths column. Let's look at some examples. Let's say 120 divided by 100 by shifting our place value. 120 goes up to the hundreds column. 2 place values smaller takes us to the units. So, starting at the units, we need to fill in a comma, the tenths, and the hundredths. This means that our answer is 1,2, or 1,20. Let's solve 8,75 divided by 10 by jumping. Divide means that the comma moves to the left. 1 0 is 1 jump. The comma jumps to the left once and ends up in front of the 8. So, our answer is 0,875. Remember, all numbers must have something written in the units column, even if it is 0. Let's do this again for multiplying. My next number is multiplying by 100, which has 2 zeros. 2 zeros means 2 jumps. Multiplying means that I move my comma to the right. When I jump my comma once, it ends up between the 9 and the 3. The second time, it lands between the 3 and the 2. So my answer is 6,793,2. Let's shift place values for our last example. 3 zeros means 3 place values, and I'm multiplying, so my place values get bigger. This time, I'm going to focus on the other end of my number. The 9 is in the thousandths column. 3 place values bigger takes us to the units column. The 8 should appear next to that in the tens column, so our answer is 89. The reason I chose to start with the 9 in the thousandths column is because it doesn't matter where you start. 2 place values bigger or smaller is going to be the same whether you start on the left of your number or on the right of your number. When solving these questions, you can still use the adding 0 and cancelling 0 trick for numbers where it works, but for everything else, choose to either jump your comma or shift your place values to get the right answer.